Hey, welcome back. Today we're sewing the Mixy block from the mighty construction site Quilt. This tutorial is similar to the dump truck in terms of details, so if you're brand new to foundation paper piecing, I recommend starting with the traffic cone or an excavator block first. Those have a bit more step-by-step guidance to help you find your footing, but if you've already got a block or two under your belt, you're in great shape. With foundation paper piecing, you're sewing your fabric directly onto a printed paper pattern. The paper acts as your guide. It keeps everything precise, your points perfectly sharp, and each section of the pattern is numbered. You'll work through those numbers in order, and the process is the same every single time. Place your fabric on the back of the paper, sew along the printed line, flip your fabric open, press it flat, and trim the seam allowance. Add fabric, sew, flip, trim, and repeat. Once you get that rhythm down, it becomes almost meditative. The paper tears away at the end, and what you're left with is a perfectly pieced block, and that's the magic of foundation paper piecing. This is what your printed pattern will look like. Some sections may be larger than a standard sheet of paper, so you'll need to tape down two pieces together to make one complete section. To do that, cut the first page along the printer line. That's your overlap guide. Take your paper and slide it over top, lining up the pattern carefully along that edge. Once everything is aligned, tape the two pieces together, then you cut the whole section out along the dotted line. We love using newsprint paper for patterns because it's thin, it's easier on your needle while you sew, and it tears away cleanly when you're done. Afterwards, if you haven't printed out your pattern in color, I like to use a crayon and color what colors I want on that pattern, so as I'm sewing, I don't need to guess what fabric is next. It's easy to get that mixed up. All right, so we've got our first section here. This first piece, the one that's going to be a number 1, I will grab that fabric and do pretty side facing out. So the ugly side is what is touching the paper, and that's the only time that happens when you're doing this is with the first number. So the second number, I'm going to get my fabric that correlates with that number, and I'm going to put it pretty sides together. So the pretty side is going to face the fabric that you just put on as number 1, and then I'm going to fold my pattern back just so that I can make sure that the fabric has enough of an allowance if I sew along that pattern line. Once that I make sure that that's on there, I will fold it back and just eyeball it, make sure that it is going to cover that piece that it needs to cover, and then I will sew along that line. It's really important to try to make sure that you are as accurate as possible along that pattern line. That is what's going to guarantee that continuous look when you combine all your sections together. Then I'm going to fold my pattern back along that line and then give myself a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Press my seam, flip my fabric over, and then trim around it, and then we will just repeat. So you'll see here that I'm folding along my pattern. I'm going to take that pattern out of the way so I don't accidentally cut it off, and then just give myself a 1/4 inch seam allowance along that line. It's also really helpful to have that line because it's something that you can use as a guide as you line up your next piece of fabric. So you'll see here I'm on number 3. I'm going to do pretty sides together, and I'm lining my fabric up along that line that I've just established, and then I'm going to sew across, following as closely as I possibly can to that black line. And there we have it. There's my seam line here. I'm going to fold my pattern down, get that out of the way, trim my seam allowance, and then I'm going to set my seams, flip my fabric open, press it, trim around my section, and there we go. We've got it all, 1, 2, and 3. So that's it, really. So we're gonna put this block down, or this section down, and work on the next one. So this one's actually even going to be even easier than the other one because you only have 2 pieces of fabric, so it's only going to be one line, one seam. So I'm going to put my first fabric pretty sides down, and this is my second piece of fabric, pretty sides together, and then line that up. I know that when I fold that out, it's going to cover the piece. This one you can see right here, I kind of deviated from the line even just a little bit, but even that small deviation can make a difference. So I'm going to unpick this one and try again, making sure that I am exactly on that black line, because that is what's going to give me that precision that I'm looking for with foundation paper piecing. All right, we did it again. I like that much better, so I'm going to press that, trim it all the way up, and we've got another section done. If only it were that fast, right? All right, so we've got one of our tires. You're going to put your fabric for number 1 pretty side facing down, so away from the paper, and then we're going to work on number 2. So you've got that second piece of paper, pretty sides facing each other, and then make sure that it's just past that line so you have enough seam allowance that it's not going to slip. It's actually going to catch enough fabric. And then at the same time, you want to make sure when you fold that fabric out, it's going to cover your piece that you need to. All right, so we've got that sewn on there. I like where it's hitting on that line. It's much better than it was before. Going to press it, fold that out, and just trim along the pattern. All right, so we've got 1, 2, and then we're going to go to number 3. It's exactly the same as what we just did. You just rotate your pattern a little bit, and it's going to be again the same for number 4 as well. I've got pretty sides together. I know that it's over the line. Sewed over that, and yep, we're good to go on that side. I'm going to fold the pattern down just to trim off that excess from my first fabric because that was kind of hanging out a little bit. Put that out there, or cut along the pattern, and again we're going to do number 4. So we're again exact same thing. Sometimes I like to fold my piece of paper or like my fabric down so I know where my line is, but if the first fabric's hanging over way too much, I will add a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and then that way I can just line up my second fabric or my other piece of fabric on that line, and I know that it's going to be just enough over that line to get myself the seam allowance that I need. All right, sewed across that, set my seams, and then fold back the pattern on the line, and then as you're trimming it, you give yourself a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. They actually have this really cool ruler. It's called an add a 1/4 ruler that's really handy for paper piecing. I'll link it below. I actually just misplaced mine, so that's why I'm not using it here. All right, so you just repeat that same process over and over, and then you'll end up with a finished block like this. The other tire is very, very similar. You just don't have the yellow pieces. You just have the background pieces right there. Continue this process until you've done it for every section, and you will end up with sections right here. We are going to assemble 2 horizontal sections and then connect them together. So you'll have the bottom row all the way across and then the top row all the way across. When I am assembling, I like to look at this pattern and try to see, okay, how are these going to go together? What are my intersecting pieces or sections, and what things do I really need to pay attention to? For this one, I'm doing the back bumper and the back tire. There aren't any big continuous lines. It's just kind of where the point of the bumper and the point of the tire meet that will look aesthetically better if I get those points matching. So I'm going to line up my 2 sections by putting a pin in the corner of my first section and then continuing that through the section of the second section, so that I know that those 2 corners match, and then I will clip it to make sure that nothing shifts and moves around. And then I'm going to do that on the same side, poke a pin through the corner and have it go through the opposite or the other section on that other side to ensure that I've got at least my corners matching up. that usually helps me get everything aligned. There are multiple techniques to it. You don't have to do this. That's just what works best for me. And then I clip this sucker like clips are going out of style. They are my ride or die when it comes to assembling foundation paper piecing, because this is the part of the project that you don't want to speed through. You really want to take your time on this, because all of the time and effort that you put into piecing really doesn't matter unless you really focus on assembly with your sections to get your block to look like one cohesive unit rather than multiple choppy pieces getting put together. All right, so we've got the back and the tire put together. Again, this one's fairly easy. We don't have a ton of continuous lines. So we're going to go with the middle of your bottom row and then your front tire and get those two together. And I'm putting that together by using the same method I did before. Poke the corners, get those lined up. And then you'll want to kind of open it up and double check, because this one does have a line. The bottom of the cement mixer and the points of the tires do line up there, so it's important to kind of keep in mind or watch for that intersection right there. All right, so you can see that right there. I'm checking on it, making sure that I like where the points are matching up. And then I'm going to shift this one down a little bit just because I don't love where those were landing. Because there's only one like kind of intersection on there, I'm going to pin this down exactly where I know I need it there, and then I'm going to work outwards for these two sections because I think that's just going to work a little bit better and go a little more smoothly. All right, there we go. I sewed across there, followed that line, and look, we've got a perfect intersection there, and I absolutely love that. So I'm gonna press these open, make sure they're laying nice and flat, and then we're going to pick up the last solo piece or section on this bottom row, which would be the front of the cement mixer, and attach that to the tire. Again, I'm gonna get that lined up there based off of that intersection that I really want to have lined up perfectly with the corner of the tire. And then I work outwards just like I did before, because that method seemed to work really well with the middle piece. And I like it, it's okay, but it could be better. So I'm just going to fudge it a tiny bit by just kind of pushing up on the fabric a little, double checking my clips, making sure that it lines up just perfectly, because again, I don't want this to all be for nothing because I rushed the assembly process. Okay, perfect. We've got it along that line. As I open that up, I really like where that is hitting the tire, and we're going to combine these two sections that we've been building to create the bottom half of this cement mixer. So I went with the same process that I kind of developed with building this, and just clipped it at that intersection because I know I want those to match. Once I was able to get that taken care of, I put those clips on there and then sewed along that line, and we've got this bottom half of the cement mixer done. Look at those crisp, sharp corners. Absolutely love foundation paper piecing for that. All right, so the next we are building the front of the cement mixer, or the cab. I'm going to check that intersecting part right there of the section and make sure I get that pinned down. I'm gonna double check it, and we are way off on that one, so we've got to adjust those, still wiggle it up, and there we go. All right, so we've got that. I'm going to close it and then clip along that line to make sure that is exactly how I want it. All right, we're good. We'll go ahead and sew that one together. All right, there we have the cab. Now we just need to connect the drum. This part of the assembly is fairly easy because we don't have any continuous lines or intersections that need to flow from one piece to another, so it's just a matter of lining them up, and that's where it's helpful to have the corners to kind of be a little bit of a guide, and then use the clips to go across those lines to ensure that nothing slips while you are sewing them together. I'm always double checking, even if I don't have lines that I need to connect. This looks great. I'm going to sew across this, and then we just need to combine this to the cab, and then we'll have our top row done. Okay, so similar to the drum, when you connect the drum and the cab, we don't have any continuous lines or intersections, so it's a fairly easy build, low stakes, I guess you could call it. So I'm going to clip these together, double check my corners. Sometimes when I'm connecting big pieces like this, I like to clip it so that things aren't moving around on me and I can have a little bit more control. Again, personal preference. It's not a requirement or something you have to do. It's just my style and how I like to do things, and that's why I did it here. All right, so I've got it clipped, double checking, everything looks good. So going to sew that, and there we go. We've got our top half and our bottom half, and we just need to connect those together. You'll see the front part here. That's where we're going to be mindful, especially mindful because that needs to be a connecting line or a continuous line. So I'm going to pin that first, or clip it first, and then just continue along the pattern, making sure that I'm staying aligned so that as I sew along that black line, I am following the pattern as precisely as possible to create a cohesive image. And that's your Mixy block. The cement mixer is one of the 9 blocks in the Mighty Construction Site quilt. You're building something really awesome. One quick note, if you are working from the construction site bundle patterns, you're going to notice a few extra numbers or an additional section compared to what you see here. That is because yours are centered and these are off-centered so that they can fit within the quilt layout. The process is exactly the same, so don't worry, just a couple more steps, and as always, just add your fabric, sew, flip, trim, and repeat. You've got it. If you're enjoying this series, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next block. But until then, happy sewing.